Oh snap, it's time to talk about Supergiant, everybody. Holy smokes, this card's getting a lot of attention. A lot of people are talking about it. Whether you love it, whether you hate it, whether you think it's going to be absolute garbage, or you think it's going to be the next best card to join Marvel Snap, there's a lot of talk. And we're going to break it all down. We're going to talk about the mechanics, counters, deck lists, some DATAMINE combos to come in the future with Supergiant, because Supergiant is a 4/5 on reveal. All cards played next turn don't reveal until the game ends. Now, that is certainly an interesting ability, right? And there's a few interesting applications that can be had, or combinations that I've discovered with Supergiant. But ultimately, this is a tech card, right? You're using it to hopefully disrupt your opponent and possibly set up a very nice scenario for you. But we'll break down the pros and the cons and all that in just a hot second. But first, we got the spotlight caches there. You got Darkhawk and Zabu. Man, these are two of the best cards since their release, practically, since it was about a year ago. And they've been relevant ever since their release. And they're going to continue to be relevant. I guarantee it. These are staple cards. They're must-haves in your collection. So if you do not own them, I think this is a great week to open up spotlight caches. If you only got one, maybe save just 3,000 tokens for the other. But, you know, it depends on your collection, where you're at. The variants are also fire. So I wouldn't even, like, if you got these cards and you just want to go for the variants, respect, dude. They're sick. I love the look of them. Okay, Supergiant, though. Let's talk mechanics. So the biggest takeaway when it comes to Supergiant is that her ability is happening on the following turn. It does not matter if you have priority or not. On the turn that you play Supergiant, all those cards, yours and your opponent's, are going to reveal and resolve on the turn that she is played. But the following turn, they're going to be hidden. And not just hidden for a turn, hidden until the end of the game, which also has a few implications. So I'm going to get ahead of myself here. But end of turn abilities occur last. So I'm talking about like that Captain Marvel, that Martyr, that Dracula. Those are all going to happen after the hidden cards from Supergiant reveal and resolve. Then they'll take their action or their ability. This is pretty relevant because let's say, I don't know, you were somehow able to buff like Captain Marvel. Well, then she has more power and she can decide where she needs to land. Let's say you discarded cards and then you got Dracula in hand, or sorry, on the board, and he's got to discard APOC. Well, you want APOC to be at his maximum amount of power possible. These sorts of things. So that is pretty relevant. But the biggest thing is next turn only. Okay, so that also means if you played on the final turn of the game, you're not doing anything. You're not making any cards hide. You're basically just playing a 4/5, and this is a 4/5. So then if we start to think about, okay, when can I actually play this card, you probably don't want to play it too early, because then that opens up the variance for the cards that you might hide. I think typically with this card, you want to really disrupt your opponent's setup for the final turn, that turn 5. So the most relevant time to play this card is on turn 4 and at the latest turn 5. And the only other time you can really do it is with Zabu on turn 3. But I think that is suboptimal. And then I think turn 6 is just a dead play. So there's a 2-turn window when it comes to playing Supergiant and getting value out of it. But there are some really cool ways that you can use this card. So you could play the unrevealed cards into destroyed locations, because they don't actually get destroyed, say like Altar of Death or Death's Domain, these sorts of things. They're not actually going to be targetable or destroyed until they're revealed. So because you know the card you play is going to be unrevealed, you could play that card, whatever it may be. And then on the following turn, let's say because you played Supergiant on 4, you play that card on 5 at the Death's Domain. On turn 6, you play Armor there. And you're going to protect it because Armor is going to reveal first, and that hidden card isn't going to reveal until the end of the game. It could be a little sneaky way to surprise somebody at Death's Domain, right? I could see it working. Or Professor X or anything like that. You can lock it in, that sort of thing. Okay, another one is that Destroyer is not going to destroy those unrevealed cards for the same reason that I just said for those locations. There's no way to target them. There's no Gambit that's going to hit them. There's nothing. Like the only thing that I can think of is Juggernaut, and a few select move cards can move unrevealed cards, but that is about it. Destroyer won't target it, so you could kind of set up something on turn 5 to play Destroyer on turn 6, knowing you won't destroy that card, and then you could just try to win that way. Could be a pretty fun combo. And then Atuma, he won't get destroyed because he's actually looking for that end of turn trigger, and then he'll self-destruct. But the end of the game does not have an end of turn. We know this because if you ever played Invisible Woman with Atuma, it saves his life. He won't die. It's fantastic. So with Supergiant, you could do the same, which I don't know if that's optimal, but it's a way to play a Tuma, which can be pretty fun. Okay, and then also with Hitmonkey, I've seen this question circulating around is when do you get the Hitmonkey power? Because that's probably going to be a good combo going around at the beginning of the month with Black Swan coming out and etc. So this is how it's going to work. You could hide the Hitmonkey on turn 5 if you played Supergiant on turn 4. And then on turn 6, all the cards that you play on that turn are what's actually going to give Hitmonkey power, not from turn 5, which is kind of nice because you can just create this setup scenario and then focus on just playing a high volume of cards. You've already paid the 3 energy tax for Hitmonkey. Play like 6 cards or whatever you can on that final turn, and then bam, your Hitmonkey's going to reveal at the end of the game with a load of power, which is great. Another way to use this is like hide Silver Surfer. You ever have the problem where on turn 6, you want to play Surfer plus other 3 drop cards so that you can get them buffed up as well, but you kind of got a clunky hand, you can only play a couple? Well, you could hide Surfer on turn 5 and then play some of those cards like Brood or whatever it may be, Shaw, and then at the end of the game, Surfer's going to reveal and buff them up. So that's kind of a neat way to create some offensive strategies, some ways to gain power on the board using and taking advantage of Supergiant's ability. But of course, one of the best applications for this card is the defensive utility. So you're going to shut down a lot of turn-sensitive plays. There's a lot of decks that rely on that turn 5 to kind of set up their combo for the future. Like, just off the top of my head, okay, just to name a few amazing ones. Everybody wants to counter a Leech. So there you go. Leech can be one if he's not played early, right? If you hide him on turn 5, well, he's going to do nothing because he won't reveal until the end of the game and there's nothing to leech. Boom. Great one, okay? Sarah, very relevant card, and typically likes to be played on turn 5. If you can cheat her out early, that's going to be great, but that's not going to happen every time. So Sarah is a good one to play Supergiant on 4 to deny the Sarah value on turn 5. But then there's more. There's like MODOK. Very popular right now is Jane Foster, right? Jane Foster pulling out those hammers. If she's revealed at the end of the game, that's not really going to help. And there's a loads more, okay? A lot of the 5 drops can get denied. Even some of like the 2 card combos on turn 5 can get denied. But you're going to have to watch out because priority is going to be that much more relevant on the turn that you play Supergiant. Because whoever obtains priority by the end of that turn is going to have it by the end of the next turn because no cards are going to reveal and there's going to be no power added towards the locations. Unless there was like, I don't know, Jotunheim or something like that, giving native power to the cards and it happens to swing. Weird scenarios like that, possibly. But for the most part, yeah, you're locking in priority for 2 turns. Now, if you have priority, well, that's pretty great because then you can play Eliath, who's probably the #1 synergistic card with Supergiant, and destroy your opponent's unrevealed cards that they played and paid in full on turn 5 that never got a chance to reveal. Fantastic. Seems great. But if you do not have priority, and I'm imagining a lot of people are going to start to put Eliath in their decks, well, watch out. Now your opponent can not only hide cards on turn 5, plan it the way they want to, but they can also use Eliath against you and destroy your cards that you spent energy on turn 5. Which brings me to one of the downsides of Supergiant, and it's a reciprocal effect. So, you could possibly be benefiting yourself by playing this card and having no cards revealed the following turn, but maybe your opponent equally benefits from that as well. Or maybe it didn't really do anything disruptive to them at all. And now what I worry is that people start to believe that they have this false advantage. They start to think, oh, I denied that card from being revealed. Now, when I go into that final turn, I've got this extra boost of confidence and I snap and I go in for that 8-cuber. And we're not going to know if I actually had an impact with my Supergiant play until the end of the game, which is too late. All those cubes have been resolved. So that could be really bad. Like, unless you have Eliath, of course, that's a great combination. And you can read your opponent's deck. A lot of people who focus on the meta game and follow all of the top meta decks are going to probably know what has built up to this point, what that player was trying to do on turn 5. So if it was like a Sarah deck, a Hitmonkey, whatever, you can kind of read and assess and you'll probably be okay. But the unknown might come back to get you a little bit and you might lose a lot of cubes because you thought this card helped, but really it didn't. And then lastly, the stat line isn't all that great. It's not all that bad. Obviously, there's been a lot of 4/5s in Snap's history, and some have found a way, but it's not ideal. And again, I don't think you want to use Abu to use this early. That's not really the most optimal time to use Supergiant. You pretty much want to use her as a 4/5 on turn 4. That is the ideal play pattern, I think. The most chance to deny your opponent's big play. So as a 4/5, again, we really want to make sure we have priority. It might be tough to keep the priority because of this tempo loss from playing just a 4/5 on turn 4. So ultimately, when I think about Supergiant, I'm thinking this card is going to be pretty good in Conquest, but pretty bad in ladder, and in general a little bit clunky to deck build around. But let's talk about some counters if you don't want to pick up this card tomorrow. So funny enough, I think some of the counters happen to be also some of the best synergistic cards with Supergiant because of that reciprocal effect. It all kinds of depends on how the game plays out. So in this case scenario, she has an on reveal, so Cosmo is here again. Of course, every time if there's an on reveal, Cosmo is going to be on the board. So that one counts for sure. And actually double down on that is that you can play Cosmo into the unrevealed cards and you might deny something big as well. Daredevil is a pretty great card to have with Supergiant, but also against, because then you know the Daredevil player can see what the player is playing despite them being unrevealed from Supergiant's ability. So that's a nice little tech option there. But I actually really like the trio of Daredevil, Supergiant, and Alioth. Alioth, pretty obvious reasons, destroying unrevealed cards. Got to make sure you got priority. But even then, it's a workaround, right? Because typically the only way for Alioth to destroy cards was through having priority or Invisible Woman being on the board. And now Supergiant is another way for Alioth to take advantage and eat up some cards. And then also I got Iron Man here because I feel like Iron Man's one of the best 5-drops to get a lot of power. And if you play Supergiant on 4, your opponent plays Iron Man on 5, they probably didn't really care that you played Supergiant to hide those cards. And it's probably just working in their favor. And then again, we're getting into that false advantage and that, big cube risk that you might be going into that final turn. But some other really good 5-drops would be like Blue Marvel or Devil Dino. These are just cards that get really good power, good value by being played on curve, which is just fine, and are not going to be hindered by a Supergiant play. So they become risky if your opponent's running those, and they're all kind of popular, or at least can be popular. So there's something to look out for. But what about some DATAMINE combos for the future? Well, I didn't really find there was a whole lot. DATAMINE, I mean, we don't have that many DATAMINEs right now, to be honest with you, but there's not many that are going to work with Supergiant. It's a very niche ability, so it's going to be hard to find cards that actually directly synergize. But I was thinking of these two, right? So you got Strife, a 3/7. If your opponent has 12 or more power here at the end of any turn, destroy this. Very similar to a Tuma, right? Same ability. If you hide it behind something, then it's never going to destroy itself because it's an end of turn ability. So just another one of those stat dumps that you could play after playing Supergiant and know they won't destroy themselves. But is it all that good? Is it worth it? I think there's way better plays than Strife here. I think this card's going to be changed anyhow. He doesn't have a release date, and he's been DATAMINE forever. So time will tell. Another card that's been DATAMINE forever, but that doesn't even have a stat line, okay? Do not read into the 0/0 too much because that is not accurate at all. We just only know the DATAMINE artwork, which he has like 4 or 5 variants, and the ability. So it's Gore. 0/0, but not actually. On reveal, destroy all 6 cost cards wherever they are. I kind of imagine this being a 5-drop, just the way it's like a bit of a setup to destroying the turn 6 cards wherever they are the following turn. So you hide this behind the Supergiant, your opponent plays a 6-drop on the final turn, and then bam, Gore reveals at the end of the game to destroy it. Could be pretty nasty. Also, if you're able to cheat this out early or it happens to have a cheaper energy tag, well, then you play it early, you destroy all their 6-drops, and then you hide their 5-drops when you play Supergiant on 4. So very disruptive. I think there's no shot this card actually releases the way he is, and it's more just like a flavor theme thing that they got going on here. But man, I want him to come to the game soon. He's got such good artwork. Let's go, Gore. Okay, those are some of the DATAMINE combos, but let's check out the deck lists. All right, so here are the deck lists that I'm brewing up for Supergiant. So on the left there, we got good cards. I think this is just like a lot of good value cards that you want to play, and you're totally fine by playing Supergiant and then playing Legion after. You know, pick a location that you like, that you want to see at the end of the game across the board. Bam. Put Legion down. Darkhawk is just a good option as well. Miss Marvel, these sorts of things. And then just a lot of tempo plays, like playing Mr. Fantastic, Jeff, Nebula, one of the best one drops. And then, of course, we got Doctor Doom to finish it off, which is great with Miss Marvel, or Alioth, preferably, probably Alioth. If we can provide ourselves with priority from that Mr. Fantastic punch, right, to get that value and then move Jeff where we need to, these sorts of things. Get priority going into that turn 5. Then we destroy whatever we want at whichever location we want with Alioth on turn 6. That's going to be pretty nice. But still might be clunky. I still think that this might be a little bit too awkward. And I think when I look at that deck, I would rather Shang-Chi, right? If you look at that deck and you think, what would I rather? Like maybe it's just my poor deck building skills, but I just feel like one of my biggest problems with Supergiant is that she's going to be all the rage for the next week, and then she's going to get completely cut from every deck list possible after like a week of having fun with her. That's kind of my little prediction there. Anyways, the next deck. I just realized that I named this deck the same thing, Swan Dive from the Black Swan Snapper Pass. I'm sorry, everybody. It's tough when we've got 2 cards coming out in the month. Anyone who's listening, thank you. Thank you for staying here and listening to me talk about this, because I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of comments letting me know that the name is wrong. But anyways, this deck list looks fun. It's kind of my berry control list that I made a very long time ago with a few substitutions. But basically the idea being that you got Orca and Destroyer as your finisher combos. But I really like Destroyer here. So we can use Supergiant on 4. And then on turn 5, we play, I don't even know, Iron Man, let's say, to get a lot of power out. Destroyer on 6. Yeah, he's going to destroy some stuff if we don't have it protected with armor. But at least Iron Man will prevail and then double the power of whatever's remaining and survived. On top of that, maybe what we want to do is you protect a lane with armor and a bunch of all these other cards like Atuma and whatnot, and Jeff. They solo a lane, and then you play Iron Man in a solo location and Destroyer right after. And bam, that's 32 power at location. Could be pretty spicy. And then just a few other controlling options there. And then lastly, Hella Giant. So this is be like a go-to with everyone for Supergiant, but I just want to really make this clear, okay? With this combo, you need magic. It's necessary. You cannot Supergiant, MODOK, Hella. That doesn't work. You'd be hiding MODOK. Hella would reveal on turn 6, and then MODOK would reveal at the end of the game. That's backwards. We don't want that. So almost every time, it's better to Invisible Woman, MODOK, Hella, because you don't need the extra turn. You don't give your opponent an extra turn to, I don't know, like counter you. Especially because this deck gets destroyed from Alioth, and Alioth is going to be everywhere soon. So I don't even know if that's all that great. But anyways, what you want to do, you want to play Magic, then do whatever you got to do on turn 4, Supergiant on turn 5, Hella on turn 6, MODOK on turn 7. That's how it has to play out if you want to do that line of play that I see everybody talking about with Supergiant. Does that not seem awkward? It seems not ideal, but an alternative. And one thing that I've seen time after time with Marvel Snap is that adding a little bit of redundancy in your deck is actually a bonus, because it just gives you that kind of guaranteed opportunity to draw one of those options to make it work with the core, attack of your deck, essentially, which is the Hella combo. So we still need to draw Hella, but at least, and MODOK, but at least that third piece, being Invisible Woman, could be substituted for Supergiant if we also happen to draw Magic. So all these ifs, ands, and all these things, it makes me go, probably not good. That's what I'm thinking. Again, could be my deck building skills, could be my lack of theory crafting with the card, but I just found it super awkward trying to put this card in decks, and it's not one of those tech options that you can just slap in there, it's going to be good to go. Shang-Chi, one of the most flexible because he destroys and swings games. This card is not destroying or discarding anything. Your opponent is still paying for the cards that they are planning to play into the Supergiant play. It's not like they were caught off guard. They know what's going to happen. They pay the energy tax to play those cards, and they're going to eventually reveal and do the thing. Unless you have that counter like Goliath. So I just keep going back to like Supergiant and Goliath. That's the only way. If you want to try a deck, I would go for the far left one. Okay. Is this card a snap or a pass? Honestly, I don't even care if you guys don't think this should be a pass. If you think I'm crazy and this is one of the best cards, I'm happy for you. That's great. Honestly, I would like every card to be awesome and maybe a little bit more affordable. But this being now a Series 5 card, 6,000 tokens, I'm just not that interested. I think there's other tech options that are going to work in decks, possibly even better. I think it's a little bit clunky. I'm not excited about it at all. That's just where I stand with this card. So this one is an easy pass in my mind. I think it's a little overhyped. A reciprocal effect that could backfire is just not enough for me and not a good stat line. I don't know. I don't see it. Maybe I missed some crazy combo. Let me know in the comments below, of course. I hope you guys enjoy the new season, but I would probably wait and see on the cards that are coming out tomorrow. There's going to be a lot of decks kicking off everywhere, and there's going to be all kinds of theory crafting. This is the most broken thing ever. Buy this. Wait and see. Wait and see like always, all right? All right, that's going to do it for me. That's it. All right. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you guys next time.